Hey, this is Rockin' Robin. You're listening to the RockStop with Chris Contra.
Welcome into the RockStop. Chris Contra here. Joining me on the program today is a former professional wrestling champ. In fact, she's one of the longest reigning women's champions in WWF history. I am talking about Rockin' Robin. So how's it going, Robin?
It's good. Going great, Chris. Thank you.
Definitely. Great to have you here.
Hey, I appreciate it. Nice to meet you.
You too.
We've been talking a little bit, yeah.
Right. And I've actually wanted you on this show for a long time. You know, I've been a wrestling fan for, back in the day. I would really consider the golden age of wrestling is when you were competing in, now that's not necessarily saying it was the women's golden age of wrestling, but as far as popularity, I think that's around the time you were competing in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, that's right. I love the term the 80s ladies. Someone had come up with that, and so that's where we kind of fall in. Mm-hmm. And I guess when you're talking about the golden age or golden era, you're, I guess, referring more to old school. Would that be right? Kind of the old school wrestling? Yeah,
I think when it really hit its peak, I mean, you of course had back in the day, but I mean, everybody, when they think of wrestling, they think of the Hulk Hogan era, which is, Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, and that was when you were there. Yeah,
pretty amazing that, some of the names, some of the people that I traveled with, and it just, I mean, thinking about it today and thinking about it now, I mean, what a crazy time, but a real privilege, to know those people as well and work with them.
Yeah, for sure. And the women's division, like I said, was not, nearly as popular as maybe got in the later 90s and things, but it was, I think the matches were way better than it got in the later 90s as far as, wrestling ability. And that was, largely thanks to people like you and Sensational Sherri and Judy Martin and all those types of women that were really carrying the women's division at that time.
I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. Originally, even when I started wrestling, I went in with the intent to really, I wanted to change things. I didn't want the girls' matches to be just what they were. They were, we kind of were the gimmick. We kind of were, the girls never really had like all full out characters and whatnot. The match itself, a girls' match, was really kind of the gimmick itself. And I wanted to try to change that a bit. And so whenever I started out, I purposely did not go through Moolah, and which kind of actually did cause quite a stink back then, and for a while, and I got quite a bit of heat for that. But
now let me just jump in here real quick. You're talking about the Fabulous Moolah, who is, a quite legendary. A lot of people, when they think of women wrestling, they think of the Fabulous Moolah. Now in recent years, it's come out that, Moolah has not been, was not the easiest person to deal with. And there were kind of some horror stories about like once a girl, started training with her, that they really were in for a lot more than they were bargaining for coming into that. So this is like, come out recently, but you knew that kind of back then. Is that why you avoided, wanting to work with her?
Well, it's probably not so much that. That really wasn't the reason. I guess I knew if you did go through Moolah, you were more or less under her thumb. I wasn't aware of the, the deeper it got, really. I wasn't aware of what a lot of the girls were going through.
Oh, okay.
But just the bottom line for me was I didn't want our matches to be just monkey flips and hair pulls and all of the same stuff that you would just see over and over again in a girl's match.
Right.
To me, it wasn't believable, and you weren't gonna grab the crowd. You weren't gonna get them involved.
Yeah.
And just seeing the same moves, like snapmares over and over.
Yeah. And so you saw that, like with a lot of the girls that were training with Moolah, that's the type of matches they were doing. So that's more the reason you were not interested in, kind of working with her.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And so I said, you know, I want to train and I want to work like the guys work. And so and what a lot of people don't know is actually Moolah would train the girls on the left, on the right hand side. And what that means is, so if you went to grab a headlock or any kind of a move or a hold, you did it from the right hand side. To me, it was very strange. That was awkward, just that in and of itself. And so, but the guys train to work from the left. So everything you do actually comes off of the left. Mm-hmm. And that was more natural for me. And, but Moolah, as sharp as she was, the reason that she did that was that only Moolah's girls could work with Moolah's girls, which meant that Moolah gets paid, you know, on both sides. Mm-hmm. And, so, you know, she was brilliant in that, and that she kept it all under her control. But I did not want to go that route. And in fact, even after I trained, I said I was told that I had to go over to her camp and say hello, and just for politics, you know, say hi and here I am kind of thing. And she suggested that I come out there and stay out there for about 3 months and work with some of her girls. And I left that day and I said, if I have to go out there, I'm walking away right now.
Wow.
I'm not going to do it. So lucky enough, though, I mean, I just held my ground, and I got an opportunity to get in the ring at a TV taping on a dark match. And that's kind of what started it all. But once I did get in, now, of course, I'm taking a spot that one of Moolah's girls would have had.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And so Sherri told me much later, probably after about 6 months that we were working together, that when I first got in and when I first started working, that she kind of put it out there, Moolah kind of put it out there to get rid of me any way they could.
Oh, my God.
So that meant some pretty stiff matches. And I mean, I believe it because the first 2 or 3 nights with Sherri, I mean, I got the living hell beat out of me.
Wow.
Yeah, it was tough. And
I mean, that kind of shows Moolah's personality, for those of you who don't know really about her. I mean, she was like you said, she was very smart in what she was doing, but she was also had quite a temper on her. And if you rubbed her the wrong way, she would, you know, pull things like that, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, she had total control. She, you know, if she didn't want you there, you weren't there. You know, I don't think anyone should have that kind of control.
Yeah, I agree.
Over yeah. I mean, you have to get to a point where you can develop yourself and kind of take it where maybe you want it to go. But you know, going back, the girls in general just didn't have. We were never set up with angles and with like I said, with gimmicks and you know, bottom line would be, well, hey, y'all go in there and wrestle for 10 minutes, and they call it that a Broadway. Go in there, do a 10-minute Broadway, and you know, and we're happy.
Yeah.
And so it was never a big build up to anything.
Right, so, right. There wasn't like a storyline that you could have worked off of, like the guys did as much.
Right.
Yeah.
We would have to build our story pretty much every night.
Right.
And which is you know, can be tough to do. And
I know you trained with Nelson Royal, who was he mostly trained guys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you picked up a lot of like those skills, and I heard the story that when Vince McMahon was watching you in an early match, he said you punch like a guy, so he liked that.
Yeah. That's really the only thing I remember about that night and what was said. They said, yeah, Vince said, wow, you know, she punches like a guy, like one of the guys. Mm-hmm. And that I was proud of that, actually, because I didn't want it to be, I didn't want our work to look
right, like everybody else's. You really stood out. It wasn't the same, like you said, snap mirrors over and over.
Right. And, and punching like you don't know what you're punching.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A typical girl's punch or so, something, but I wanted to, as I said, wanted to change it up a little bit to maybe where we could get some momentum.
Yeah.
But it just didn't go that way.
Well, no, not as much as, like the Diva era came along and, that's the momentum they went with the women's division.
Yeah.
But, no, you guys were doing real wrestling, and anybody that goes back and watches your matches, I mean, those were legit. You guys really put on a nice display of wrestling.
I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, I like to think we did.
How did you come up with your the gear you wore in the ring? Obviously, you need to find something that you're really comfortable and you can do a lot of good moves in, right?
I actually started out with just a very simple, plain, one piece. And when I got to WWE though, or WWF, they send you to a costume place. It was in New York, and then they just designed this. You have a little bit of input, but then they just kind of design, I guess, an outfit for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really didn't have a lot to do with that when I worked up there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I had a long tuxedo jacket, which I liked, but unfortunately was stolen at some point.
Oh.
But right out of the dressing room too.
Huh.
Many years later, but. There wasn't a lot to do, and with a name like Rockin' Robin, I don't know, I was scared they were going to dress me as a bird or feathers and all that, but thank goodness, they didn't.
Yeah. Did you come up with the name?
No, it was kind of an accident. It just, I think one of my first matches, they just come and, my name is Robin Smith, so. It was like, well, that's a little dull. What can we call you? And I said, the first thing I thought of, I guess, Rockin' Robin, because, back at that time, like the Rock and Roll Express, some of the older, and some of the ones I grew up with, they had just come off of the Rockin' Wrestling and all that. So I said, okay. And so that just stayed. There really wasn't a lot of thought put into it.
So that was like the first one that just kind of popped in your head, Rockin' Robin, huh?
Yeah. At one time we had toyed with Robin Roberts because of Jake the Snake Roberts, and that would have been kind of cool. But we didn't necessarily, and I didn't want that relationship out there. I wanted to come in and work my way through and I didn't want to come in on anybody's coattails.
Right, and you did that great. I mean, a lot of people I don't even know who are listening to this interview and realize that you are the sister of Jake the Snake Roberts because you didn't play off that at all in your whole entire career. I mean, you really made a name for yourself.
Right. In fact, it was funny. Judy Martin later told me that I was in the Survivor Series. And nobody knew. They kept asking, who is this Rockin' Robin? I mean, it just kind of came out of nowhere. Who is this Rockin' Robin? And Moolah said, oh, that's that damn Grizzly's daughter. With her, that's that damn Grizzly. That's that, I think she called him some other name, but, that's that damn Grizzly's daughter. And so then everybody put two and two together.
You became the champion over Sensational Sherri in a match in Paris. Is when she lost the title to you. It was a really good match. The ending move there with the bulldog from the ropes. I mean, that's you don't see that in many women's matches. It was great.
Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah, you don't. I guess the most feedback that I hear these days about really the women's and the men's wrestling, especially in WWE, is it's just high spot after high spot after high spot.
Mm-hmm.
It's just flying, high flying, and it doesn't settle down. And I think that they really do lose that old art of telling the story.
I absolutely agree. I mean, it's almost like gymnastics out there. But you're right.
I call it Cirque du Soleil or
right.
Cirque du Wrestling, and What's really bad about it, and maybe this comes from being trained by a legend like Nelson Royal, is that to do any kind of move like these somersaults and these things is any of those things are a career-ending move. I mean, it takes one wrong whatever to come off of a top rope and 2 somersaults then down on the floor or down into a table I don't know. I just don't know why they do it. That moves need to make sense.
Right.
They need to have a purpose. Okay, well, you can not just because you can do 2 somersaults, off of the top rope.
Yeah.
What has that really done? But it just seems it's all gone that way. I think a lot of these... I certainly wouldn't. I wouldn't be doing it today. I can tell you that.
Right. I mean,
no way.
Your move set. I mean, you talk about kind of stepping outside of certain move sets just to get more spectacular. I think of did you see what happened to the wrestler Sid Vicious? It was probably 20 years ago now, but that guy's certainly not a guy that goes off the ropes often in his career. He's not that type of wrestler, but evidently from what I heard, like they suggested, why don't you do more stuff off the ropes? And he he shattered his leg.
Oh God. Did you see the video?
Oh yeah.
Oh God, I just cringe every time I even think about it. And I mean, that was just horrifying to have that happen, and then right there in the middle of the ring.
I know,
and that's my point. That's my point is that you're. I don't know. They keep upping the ante,
right?
Up to these, these who can go higher, who can go further, who can go, who can fly, who can, and. Again, the story is there's just not one. It's, at least in the ring, they've gotten to where they try to tell it now in promos, and then it becomes one big promo. There's little left in a real match, and it's let's just talk about everything we're going to do. Years ago, you just did it. You just.
Right, the promo
laid out that story.
Yeah, the promo was short and sweet back in the day, and then you got in the match, and that's where the story was told. You're right, it did. Exactly. It's switched these days, totally.
Yeah.
And just to speak about like some technical wrestling moves and stuff, we were talking earlier how Vince says, you throw a punch and it looks like it's like good how the guys do it. Like what goes into that to make it look good, but not like actually hurting your opponent?
Oh, well. I guess I don't know. It's kind of a hard question because you hope it doesn't land too hard.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it does. I'll be honest with you. It just doesn't always because your adrenaline is going, everything is going, and one of the most important aspects is that person that let's say you're throwing that punch at. Needs to just kind of stay there,
right.
not step into it or not step out of it. If I guess timing. Maybe if it comes down to one word, it would be the timing.
Mm-hmm.
And you like I said, want to be sure because your job too is to be sure that other person that you're not really the cause of them getting hurt.
Right.
And the funny thing is actually that most of the time when wrestlers do get hurt, it's actually their own fault. They've done something that just didn't go the way that it should have gone for them.
Right. Yeah.
But maybe it's timing on both parts, and then too, when you get to a point where your chemistry is good with whomever you're working with, and they can start to anticipate or maybe know what's coming, know how you move a little bit better and how you move, and it's to explain wrestling itself, it's actually a lot like dancing, and that's the way I've described it. Dancing is made up of combinations, and so that's what wrestling is really. And then you have people that dance very well together. And then you have people that are just a total cluster, you know what.
I gotcha.
And so, some are great and it just, flows like butter, and then some are just not. And so, I guess that's the best way to.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to say it. And so now, like, drawing up a match, say, you had the match with Sherri in Paris for the title. How did you go about drawing that one up?
Well, we got to a point, Sherri and we had been working for about, I guess a solid year in coming up to that match when they decided that's what would happen in Paris. And so we really had a lot of combos to choose from. And because we had worked together so long and we'd tried different things out on different nights in different towns. And if something really worked well, we left it in and would use it again.
Yeah.
And Sherri got to where, I appreciated it so very much. It's actually the heel is usually the ones that will call a match.
Oh, really?
That's how it used to be. I think now when we're talking about, say, WWE in particular, I think that's all called and choreographed by a writer somewhere that's not in the ring. But years ago, when that golden era you're talking about, so whenever I was in it,
mm-hmm.
you called your matches in the ring. There was not a whole lot of discussion beforehand.
Oh, wow.
And that's where the becoming a real good worker came in.
Yeah.
That if you could call it in the ring and have a good match, then you were considered a really, really good worker. And but yeah, and normally it's the heel that would call the match. And but we got to where Sherri actually was okay with me calling. I usually called all my matches. There's probably, I can count on one hand the matches that I did not call.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So,
and that takes a lot of trust too.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
I appreciated that.
I mean, when you would get in the ring with a rookie, for example, somebody you haven't worked with before, I mean, not necessarily a rookie, but just somebody you haven't worked with, that's got to be a little more tense of a situation, probably, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you have to yell at them, like, kick me. It's really kind of funny, like, hit me,
Yeah.
I'm down, stomp on my head. And so, I mean, you're telling somebody to, beat the crap out of you. And if you're dealing with a rookie, you don't know whether that boot's coming down hard.
Oh, yeah.
Or, because, again, if they're green, then that blood is pumping, that adrenaline's going. And so many times you just, it just comes with all the force.
Oh, man, yeah.
There's no helping it. But you let it slide. You let one slide. One's a mistake. 2 is intentional, and then 3 you have to give a receipt.
Yeah.
Which means you've got to. All right, now it's time to. All right, this is what we're doing. It's on, and it's kind of wild, because a lot of people don't realize that is the real part of it.
Yeah,
that is the real. There's a lot more going on than what you would ever think inside the ring. When you are, you're at the point where you're world champion, you're at that status, then, that's where everybody wants to be. And so they're, half of them know that it's a matter of working and doing a good match, but then the other half says, but I've got to look good because I want them to consider me as a champion. And so they'll go in there and intentionally try to make you look bad.
Wow.
And I mean, I eventually, that really is why I retired. I really just got tired of some not getting it, getting that it doesn't matter who wins or loses. It really doesn't. That, and I'll put you over, every day if I have to, but as long as they want to come back and see you wrestle again.
Right.
That's what's important. But it got to a point where we had our exposure was very, very narrow. We might have had a match on TV once a month or even longer than that, but so we didn't have the exposure like the guys. So when you did get it, then it's all those little devils that come out and say, well, oh, here's my chance, here's my shot, and let me make her look stupid, or and the things that some people would pull, I mean, were just unreal. And you can't, and it's hard to explain to someone when they've got it set in their mind that here's my shot, I'm going to take it.
Yeah, wow.
That here's really what you need to do. I'm not saying we have to be friends, but it's better to work with the person than work against.
Yeah,
for sure. Because
of that, just that limited time on TV, and that's a very interesting point. I never thought of that.
And I tell you, I mean, Chris, that's what will kill a good run in a hurry.
Yeah.
It'll kill a good match in a hurry. Because when the fans don't care who wins, and when the fans aren't really behind the good guy, and then really hate the bad guy.
Yeah.
And if they're just watching someone beat the shit out of the other person with nothing else to go on, really,
right.
You've lost them.
Yeah.
And it's really just pointless.
What kind of things? I mean, you said like the things they would do. I mean, other than maybe not selling moves that you're doing, or being excessive on their end. What other kind of things would they do?
Oh gosh, I mean, I can think of things, but it's hard to describe.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay.
To you. I would have to. It would have to be something where I would have to show you. But it's kind of like you just said, though. Really, mainly it's not selling. Not selling is just not good,
Yeah.
And it's disrespectful. It's the big no. If you're not selling, that means you're not willing to work.
Right.
You're not willing to work with that person, and so you find out real quick if somebody's going to work with you or not. And just how hard that match is going to be.
Yeah, you got a long match ahead of you with an opponent like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I wanted to ask you about referees. As you're in the match, you're kind of calling it on the go, on the fly. Mm-hmm. Now, how do you incorporate the referee into that? Like, I mean, of course, they got to know what's going on, or is it just very natural with certain refs?
I mean, they're great at what they do. And, but there are times that I might say, hold me back.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody's in a corner and, it's just get in between us. Otherwise I got to go right in the corner and just, stomp her or whatever.
Yeah.
But, just to kind of take a little break, I'll say, hold me back and what have you. Or I might even, tell the ref she's going out. When I throw her out, there's some communication, but referee mostly helps us in the time limits. In keeping time. He'll let you know if you're at 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Know when it's time to go home, which means finish the match.
Mm-hmm.
And our match in Paris, we were supposed to go home about 15 minutes before we did. It was supposed to be about a 10-minute match. It ended up like 25, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just kept that one going, and just out of yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yep,
That
going.
Classic, one of your most classic matches, I'd say. Yeah, where you won the title in Paris for sure. And then again, sticking with referees for a minute, I just saw a match with you against Sherri. I think it aired on Primetime Wrestling. You won the match, and you were very elated, and you grabbed referee Joey Marella and planted a kiss on him.
Yeah. I got back to the dressing room actually, and who was it? One of the agents came back there and said, why did you kiss the ref? What did you, I said, I don't know. I was just happy. And, it just kind of seemed to be a fun thing to do. It's a real surprise to everybody.
Oh, so that wasn't like prearranged or anything, huh?
No, he didn't know it. He didn't know it at all. No, but he came back and thanked me, though. He's like, oh, that was fun. That was cool.
I'm sure he did.
Yeah, it was. But it seemed like people got a kick out of it. It's like, you're celebrating, you're happy, and, I'm not going to go hug Sherri, so I guess the referee.
Yeah, it was very natural. It worked well. And that referee was Joey Marella, who was the son of Gorilla Monsoon, the announcer.
Yeah. We, in fact, after that, we were friendly, and we hung out together a good bit.
Oh,
cool. If we were on the same tour. Yeah. He was a real nice guy.
So, tell me a situation where, like, you were having a match where the crowd was completely in your hands, like everything was going right, the crowd was loving every move.
One of the greatest matches for me, we were in, I don't even remember the town. We were in California, and I remember that because we were going just from south to north, all through California.
Yeah.
So from Southern California all up to Northern California. Well, somewhere in between, a really, really good friend of mine was living out there at the time. His name was Larry. And so Larry had never, he was one of these people that he wasn't impressed at all by wrestling. And I told him that I was coming through. I was going to be very close to where he lived. And I had to really talk him into coming to the matches. Because he's like, oh, well, we'll just meet up afterwards. Da-da-da. I don't like that wrestling stuff. This is his answer. So anyhow, I talked him into coming. Well, and I got him. I arranged to have him sit right in the middle of front row. Okay, so he had a ringside seat, and he was in the middle of the row. Yeah. And so I went to Sherri before we went out, and I said, look, I've got a friend out there. And I said, so, and I kind of just pointed out where he was. And I said, I want to freak him out, right? And so she's like, she was all for it. She loved, she was going to roll right with it, and she sure did. So it got to a point in the match, like the middle of the match, and so, I figured that Larry is going to be the one sitting down, in the front row. Everybody else is going to be up and screaming, and there's going to be Larry just sitting down in his chair with his arms crossed or something. Yeah. And the next thing I know, Sherri takes me by the hair and just throws me out of the ring right at his feet. I mean, just right down there. Next thing I look up, and Larry, he's the one in the chair. He's screaming. He's going to kick Sherri's ass. I mean, he's like he has come unglued at this point. So we go on and we work the rest of the match, and I think Sherri went over. She wins. Mm-hmm. But it was a hard-fought match, right? Yeah. People were saying, I should have won. She cheated. She, probably pulled the tights at the end or whatever. Yeah. And so then comes intermission, and I had already told my friend that we would leave. We could leave at intermission and go. We were going to go to dinner and do some things. And he just, it makes me laugh to think about it because I said, all right, meet me kind of at the back door once, at intermission, and we'll head to the car and all that. So, and I mean, next thing you know, Larry's in the parking lot directing traffic. He's like, oh, my, give her room, give her space. She'll sign your autographs. Just give her some room. And I mean, I got the 10-star treatment from Larry, and it was just fun. It was fun just that, here's somebody that I just didn't think. He was just going to bide his time, basically, just, there at the matches. But, I mean, he didn't calm down for 2 weeks after that.
That really...
He loved it. Yeah, that
really shows.
I mean, he was ready to kill Sherri. He was like, I ever see her? I'm like, huh? calm down, little Larry, calm down.
and that's the reaction you want. You want the crowd to be arguing about the outcome of the match, and you want them invested like that. And that's a great story. And that's a guy that you said, going into it wasn't interested at all. And no,
he's an old friend of mine.
Yeah, right.
Since high school. Or junior high even, and so
he knew you were wrestling. He knew about all your wrestling and things, and then but to actually watch a match up close, that shows. That
he was
shows
one of those. He thought it was silly, and I'm just I'm not interested at all in wrestling. And that's fine, that's cool. Just there, and we'll leave. And I mean, it like I said, I mean there weren't enough drinks to knock him out that night. Ball.
I had Scotty Schwartz on this show, who, the actor, Scott.
Uh-huh.
He's the actor from The Toy, for those of you listening, The Toy and A Christmas Story. He was talking to me about he was free help for the WWF back in, I think, the late 80s, I guess around the time you were there. He would help set up the rings and things like that. And it got me thinking about the what really goes on with setting up a ring and the different rings that you've wrestled in. I imagine, the WWF, they were pretty up there as far as ring quality and stuff, but have you also wrestled in some maybe not so good rings where the landings weren't as comfortable?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've worked in some that were kind of like springboards, which actually makes it a little bit harder. For me, it does anyway. And then there have been rings that the WWF rings were really tight and firm, very firm.
Mm-hmm.
And which again I think is probably safer. But when you get I've gone into rings where the mat wasn't pulled tight, across the end, and you get a little wrinkle in the mat, that can cause serious injury.
Yeah.
And so I think, in fact, when the show G.L.O.W was on, I watched it a few times, and it scared me to death to look at that ring that they were doing all this in, and it was. I thought, well, if any of them make it out of the match, they're going to be lucky.
Yeah.
It was terrifying. I didn't even know if the girls realized
that
that's their biggest. That should be their biggest fear, is that ring.
Yeah. And that's a good point, because I don't know if those girls were, in fact, I kind of do know. I had Hollywood, who is a wrestler for G.L.O.W. She was on the show, and she wasn't really like a trained wrestler like you. I mean, a lot of those, she just went in for like an audition, like for a TV show. She didn't even know like wrestling would be part of it until later on. So it's true. Like they would probably have no idea of the dangers of a bad ring.
Yeah, I think that the padding that they had in that ring, you could see, and that padding, I think maybe they thought that was a good thing, that the girls wouldn't get hurt with more padding. But the more padding you have, the worse it is.
Yeah,
your feet get stuck. You can't run. You can't turn without everything underneath you turning. And so, that was horrifying, really.
And I guess kind of sticking on the same subject a little bit, I did see one match that you were having where you went under the ring for a second to kind of bluff out your opponent, and then you came back up and drop kicked her. Did what goes on under the ring? I never know. Like when I see people crawl under the ring, I don't know how well you could see under there. Can you see very well?
No, you can't see anything. Yeah, it was just a small bit that I would do, every now and then actually it's very dangerous to do, because there are things under the ring. There are cables. There's the equipment to set up the ring. So after a few times that I did go under and to the other side, I then decided, no, it's probably best to just hug the side of the ring and go around, so they still can't see me, but I am going to the other side.
Right. Yeah.
But, I mean, it was fun to do. It was fun to do, but I was lucky that I just didn't get stuck under there. Now that would have been pretty embarrassing that, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Where she's gone, yeah. Yeah, she's somewhere under the ring, caught on a cable or something. And yeah, that's over.
Fortunately, nothing like that ever happened. And
yeah.
So were you always a babyface in your career? Now, for those who are listening that aren't wrestling, you know, don't know all the wrestling terms, babyface is the good guy, heel is the bad guy. So I think you were always babyface as far as I know. Is that true?
Yeah, I was, and I asked a couple of times. I wanted to turn heel, but they were like, "No, not with that." Of course, and they said, "Not with that baby face," because of I had big cheeks and kind of fat cheeks, and just smile and And I thought, well, I don't know. Let me kick a kid, on my way to the ring or something, and that should do it, right?
That could do it.
on the Dark Side interview that we just did, I mentioned on there that I thought it would have probably been a lot of fun to be Rotten Robin, go from Rockin' Robin to Rotten Robin. I think I really enjoyed that, but no, that never happened.
Yeah. So I remember coming up to Wrestlemania 5, I remember you did a debate with Sherri about whose corner Miss Elizabeth should be in with for Macho Man or Hogan. That was how was that experience?
It was that was again kind of a trip, because it was something thrown at us in the last less than 2 minutes.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he Mr. McMahon just came back and said, "I want you to go out there and talk about that Elizabeth is going to be on the side of Hulk Hogan," and I'm just looking like, wait, what? Like now? And he's like, yeah, like now? Yeah, go. I'm like, and Mean Gene is standing out there, and he's waiting, for the interview to start. I had no idea, so I just went out there and said what he wanted us to say, but actually that's I'm glad you brought it up, because that's a point at which could have turned in, would have been nice for that to have turned into something, some sort of an angle or anything, but
right.
It just, we did it and then it was dropped.
Yeah, that was the end of it.
Yeah,
it was a one-off. Yeah, but
so I don't know if they were just filling time or what that deal was. It was fun.
Yeah.
Gene was right in the middle of the whole thing, and so we had a good time. But really, like I said, it was like, he said, "Oh, so good, go out there and do this." And oh, okay, now. Yeah, now go. All right.
Yeah, in front of a live crowd doing some. Yeah. Debate. It's not something you really think of in wrestling, but you were. That was. I think that whole thing was like they had a number of debates. I forget who else was on there, but like other guys debating. I think Jake the Snake was debating somebody, maybe Andre.
Oh, okay.
Something like that. Okay. So yeah, it was.
Gotcha. See, I didn't even realize that, Chris. That's just kind of crazy. We unless we were kind of out there and around everything that was going on, we really were in the dark about so much stuff. Literally, I would get my tickets, I would get my itinerary, and I would see where I'm going to be in, like I said, Madison Square Garden or wherever, or at the TV taping, and not even know what it's for. At the time, I didn't really comprehend that the Survivor Series was a big deal. These big event pay-per-views, and, it just didn't really register, I guess.
Yeah. Pay-per-views at that time, they weren't like the big deal they are now. Everybody knows, Survivor Series and SummerSlam and stuff. But you were in the very first Survivor Series match, and that was like a pretty epic match. It went for a while. It was a 5-on-5.
Yeah. And I had no idea, that this was a big deal.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't told, or I wasn't... I don't, it's a shame to say you'd have to be told, but, you were kind of just thrown into things. We were, anyway, and really not knowing the gravity of some of these things.
Yeah.
And in fact, I was doing a signing with One Man Gang, a while back, and we talked about this, and he said the same thing. He's like, I didn't know whether I was coming or going. I didn't know. I showed up where I was supposed to be and wrestled and, did my thing. But as far as seeing how it was laid out and realizing the magnitude of these different shows and what they meant, no, just didn't have a clue. Because when I was growing up, it wasn't like that at all. That's what you did. You went from town to town and wrestled.
Right.
Working up to this big, Wrestlemania or this big Survivor Series or any of those.
Yeah. I mean, it's so different with like wrestlers these days. It's almost like a completely different lifestyle that they lead as compared to like with your era of wrestlers, men or women, I guess, were experiencing as to what they're experiencing these days.
Yeah, I agree.
Was it weird if you were seen out like in public with Sherri, who you were feuding at the time? You're breaking the kind of the show there. If you guys are seen in public, being friendly together, and these days like that stuff just flies everywhere.
Yeah, well, we couldn't. We weren't. You couldn't do that.
Yeah.
It was different again though with the girls because we could go out and not be recognized. Yeah, you just kept that on the down low. I can't say we were ever recognized together. Maybe at an airport once. and if that happened, I could always depend on Sherri to lose it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, she would absolutely give them a show. she would tell me, I don't want that girl on my plane, and
I can totally see that with her. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. and then we get on the plane and we're both up in the front and having drinks. And I remember one instance where we literally thought we were going to die. The turbulence was so bad on this flight, and I mean, trays were bouncing up and down. You were bouncing up and down. Oh. If you didn't have a seatbelt on, you would hit the ceiling.
Wow.
I mean, it was that bad, and we just kept slamming drinks as much as we could, as much as we hold on to it. So we were just shooting those little bottles. It's like, well, this is it. We really thought that was it. So we didn't. When the turbulence started, we didn't really care who saw us, together. Adios.
Wow. Fortunately, I guess things calmed down.
Well, needless to say, we landed and we were still high after we got off the plane. We made, but that was on a trip home. So we got home and I went my way, she went hers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow. I mean, that's life on the road, I guess. Traveling as a professional wrestler, huh?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And just so you don't have to bring it up, I'll bring it up. The singing the America the Beautiful, because that's usually the question that everybody is kind of waiting to kind of feel me out to try to bring up.
I know you don't like to talk about it, so and I did know about it. Go ahead.
I was going to say, let's go ahead and talk about one of the worst nights, of my life.
I'm going to say, but before you go on, I will say, I do not think it was as bad as you make it out to be. I'm just saying, I did not think it was that bad.
Well, I appreciate you being very kind. You're right. In your mind, you hope for really good things and really big things and, like a Whitney Houston moment or something. And this was just as far opposite as you can get. But sadly, it's probably not even really in the top 10 of most embarrassing moments, but it's up there. But when I was called to, Mr. McMahon called personally and asked if I would sing America the Beautiful to open WrestleMania V. And what do you say?
Right, yeah.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And I don't know where it came from. I have no idea why I was asked. The only thing that all these years later that I can come up with is that wasn't unusual that where if we were wrestling somewhere and then that night you go down to the hotel bar, and if there was a band playing, I wasn't shy about getting up and singing with a band. Mm-hmm. And, that's with a couple of drinks and, and usually it was some kind of raunchy song, whatever, or, blues or something like that.
Right.
And that's the only thing that I can come up with that why anybody would think for a minute that maybe I could, open the show with America the Beautiful. When he calls personally and asks,
right.
I mean, you just, yes, of course. Yeah, I mean, hindsight, of course, I would very much change things. But the truth about what happened was that we were in Trump Plaza in Atlantic City, and there's Donald Trump right on the front row. And I mean, it was really cool. It was pretty surreal. But he and his wife then, Ivana
mm-hmm.
Trump, so they're on the front row, and I just remember catching a glance, and then I wouldn't even look that way when it was over. But so I'm standing there and just standing, and apparently the show started, and the music came on, and the music came on all over the world, and all over every monitor, all over every TV, but it wasn't piped into the arena. They missed a switch or whatever it was, that the music wasn't playing inside of the arena. So somebody finally, I guess, in the back stuck their head out and said, "Oh my God, the music's not playing out there."
Did you consider maybe just going a cappella?
Well, I mean, I couldn't hear anything, so I actually was going to do that. I thought, well, maybe I'll just start singing, which I'm glad I don't know. I couldn't win at that point, I guess, because if I started singing a cappella and then they restarted the music, that was going to just be, I mean, I don't know, 40 million people, watching one of your worst moments. It's, and when the music actually, when it did come on also, when it did, it was not the same as the tape I had been rehearsing with. The music was slower, and it was, the key was lower. So I'm like, oh, I'm in real trouble. Yeah. So I'm like, I better do this just like straight. I swear to God, the thing that went through my head, my thought was, how would Jim Duggan do this?
Really?
I swear to God. It was like, 'cause he could probably pull it off well and funny, right?
Yeah.
And Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Right. And
I thought, well, if Jim Duggan were to do this, he'd just probably, just sing straight. None of those riffs or those, runs, whatever they call them, where, you're trying to hit every note in the universe.
Right.
And I said, I just better stick to basic notes here. And
yeah. Well, the crowd gave you a nice ovation, and
oh God.
So
I remember just going. Getting out of the ring and walking back, and my mother was back there and said, let's go to the casino. She said, I'm not letting you sit in the room all night.
Oh,
no.
Man.
So,
you did look quite adorable during the performance. So
you are very sweet. I think all of us in our, when you're 20-something, everybody in their 20s, I think, is adorable. So if you're going to be adorable, that's your adorable time, and then we mature. But let everybody know that I did swear that I would never sing in public again, so nobody has to worry about it. And I've kept my promise. Yeah.
Well, but listen, that was one thing, but as I said, I don't think it was that bad. You were in the Royal Rumble match, I think a couple months earlier against Judy Martin. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was, you were defending the title at that time. So, I mean, you did have some good heat going a little bit there, but like you said, not much in storylines way. Nothing really happened with Judy Martin and anything like that.
Right. They would say, let's do an interview. Let's do a quick interview or cut a promo. And 3, 2, 1, go. Well, who am I wrestling? and what's the deal?
Yeah.
What am I? what do I automatically just start screaming about? I have no idea. And so that's why we didn't have a lot of great promos and interviews. There was just not a lot to say, sadly. Yeah.
Sadly, yeah, because those storylines, if you were given the chance, really could have been pretty great, I think. And the matches were certainly great. I did want to ask you about certain things like competing in battle royals. I know you did a couple of them. Now, in a battle royal situation, you got to keep an eye on everything going on. I mean, it seems like it could be pretty chaotic in there.
Yeah, I mean, it can be extremely chaotic. I prefer to just kind of sit in the corner and watch with everyone else. And really, you're waiting for the first couple of people to go, and try to kind of I would try to conserve the energy to get through the whole thing, because they're normally fairly long.
Yeah. And
so you let a few people take care of whoever they're going to take care of, and then jump on in. But
right, so it's like drawing up a match, like or one-on-one is very different when you do it in a battle royal. I mean, you kind of have to have like certain girls to work with, I imagine, huh?
Well, I tell you what, it's a lot like the Survivor Series. They kind of they come in and say, all right, so and so's going out first, so and so's out second, and they kind of let you know who's going out first, second, who's next to go out.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It can be, it can be up to you if they just say, Broadway, whoever wants to, throw her over, or, and then when it gets down to, the last few, then there's more of an angle, more of a story that'll go on.
Right. Okay, cool. I got you.
And you're just all over the place.
Yeah.
Telling jokes sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's funny.
I used to kind of pull that on Sherri quite a bit. I would just tell her that if she had something on her trunks or something, and she didn't, but she'd look, turn and look, and is it still there? Yeah, it's still there. Yeah. Where have you been? And she would do everything she could to wipe it off, but again, nothing there.
Yeah.
I have a quick one for you. I'll tell you. I think we were in Madison Square Garden, and I had Sherri. In a hold. We were kind of in the middle of the ring, and just in a hold. And so the referee, of course, they'll keep asking, hey, Sherri, do you give it up? Do you give it up? And she says, no, I'm good. So, tighten up on the hold, and Sherri, you give it up? You give it up yet? No. And so, of course, the third time, he's asking, Sherri, come on, you give it up? You give it up? She says, no. And I said, yeah, but for $20 she will. And the ringside heard it. They heard all that went on. Starts cracking up, and so I was laughing, and she was laughing. Referees, everybody's just bouncing kind of up and down in the ring laughing, and it kind of went downhill from there. But
and then I wanted to ask you about Velvet McIntyre, who you wrestled with, at least at the Survivor Series. I don't know how many times you were in the ring with her, but she was notorious for wrestling barefoot. Now, I would think that would be pretty dangerous.
Yeah, I would think so too. I don't. Yeah. I would have a hard time with that. I don't know how. I don't know how she ever did it, but I would guess it's one of those things that maybe she would find it difficult to put the boots on.
Right at that point,
just more comfortable barefoot.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we were. That's the one time I know of that we were actually in the ring together, and that might have been it.
Yeah.
I knew Velvet, but I didn't really work with her much.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
unfortunately.
Right. She was a good performer, I always thought. And then Moolah was also in that match. I cannot remember. Did you have many moments with her in that match, in the Survivor Series?
Not in that match, but later on I did have a couple of singles matches with Moolah.
And how was she? Was she cool with you?
Yeah. By that time, yeah, she, I think, had developed at least a little respect. I guess that I wanted to work and wanted it to be good, and to further the women's, I don't know, division. We didn't have really a division then, but just to further women's wrestling. Yeah. And as long as you let Moolah get her spots in as well, then you were okay. And so we, one match in particular, we just ate out the time. It might have been a 25 minute match. And so it was the time limit ran out. And so it was a draw. But she was able to, she really worked the old school, gimmick in the tights and some, she's got something in her, in her top, between the boobs. Mm-hmm. She's hiding something in the cleavage, and then she plays with the referee for, good 5 minutes at a time. Yeah. And she was great at doing that. And it helped with a story a bit. Mm-hmm.
What did you?
I was just afraid because at that time I was afraid though that because even at that time she was in her 60s or maybe even 70s, and honestly I was a little bit nervous about breaking one of her bones, when I should have been worried about breaking one of my own, or her breaking one of mine.
Right.
But she was still tough.
Did you see her in like the later 90s? Her and Mae Young made a resurgence at WWE, and they were doing matches against Ivory and stuff. I mean, it was crazy.
Oh my God. Yeah. I saw a little bit of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
One of those, you want to watch and then you have to look away, and then you have one eyeball watching, and I don't know. Again, I don't know what the purpose for maybe all that was, but I know that the connection with Moolah and Vince Sr. went way back, was very long and very strong. That connection, and I think that put Moolah in the position in WWF and WWE, mm-hmm. Why she was throughout there.
Yeah, right.
Sprinkled in.
Right, all throughout the many years, exactly. And then I wanted to ask you about, what did you think of, some of the calls that Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan did on some of your matches, if you ever heard them?
Oh God, they were great. They were hysterical. In fact, that was some of my favorite, parts, was just listening to those two. Yeah. Especially on the Paris match. Their commentary was just great. Yeah. And so they cracked me up. They cracked me up all the time. Don't know where they got the stuff. Don't know where. Yeah. Bobby Heenan though, one night we had showered, we'd finished, and I think even the crowd had gone, and it was time to head back to the hotel. And our dressing room door opens, and in flies a broom. And I just remember, I think it was Bobby Heenan at the door and just screaming, "Sherri, your ride is here." and I said, "Oh, man." So I just got out because all hell's going to break loose. Sherri had a sense of humor, but you had to pick your moments. You had to know when those were, and that was just not, that was bad timing on his part. It was that door shut. You could hear it's, if you've ever had like a squirrel in a cage, that is just like bouncing off of everything. That was what the dressing room sounded like.
Oh wow! So he picked the wrong time there.
He did. Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like he was attempting to have some fun there. Did you guys have a lot of fun on the road and things like that? And who were you closest with during your traveling days?
Well, probably I guess Sherri and Judy. So Judy Martin. Those are the two really that I spent the most time with. And it was work. It was a lot of work. I can't say we had a ton of fun. You were trying to get from point A to point B always, and you did your match, and on to the next.
So just aside from the occasional karaoke night, it was pretty much just
That's, yeah, exactly. That would happen. And then there were some towns. We go to Chicago. Anytime in Chicago, there was a place there called the Stay Out All Night, and we would go there and stay out all night. That's when you walk out of the bar and it's daylight again.
Yeah, right.
And yeah. So.
Hey, people in maybe these bars or whatever, catch on, recognize you guys, and know you're wrestlers, and maybe after having a few drinks, maybe want to pick a fight with you guys at all. You ever get anything like that?
No, not really. Not like the guys. I mean, it's like football players too. You look at somebody and you say they have to be a wrestler or a football player.
Yeah.
Just the size, and we could just kind of blend in.
Yeah, I mean, for people who don't really know you and haven't watched your matches and stuff, I mean, they hear you're a woman wrestler. They might think you're a big woman, but that's the kind of the perception. But no, you really, walking down the street, I would not guess that.
No, most people don't, and even throughout my life and the different places, the different houses I've had and I've lived in. It's really funny that years will go by and my neighbors will never know that that's what I used to do.
Wow.
And then, one day somehow find out and everything changes. Then they're jumping out in the middle of the street, flexing muscles and see, that's why I don't say anything.
Yeah.
But it's really, it's fun when they find out much later that it just they trip out, really.
I bet, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then your time ended in WWF at the time, and then you went on to do some other promotions. I know you wrestled in Japan for a little bit. I remember I saw a match against with you versus Luna Vachon in Japan. How is it wrestling over there?
Whew. Luna and I, that was my first tour of Japan, and I think Luna's too. Yeah. So we were virgins going over there to Japan, and I mean, the Japanese style wrestling, and we got there, and that night the promoter had said, do you want to work tonight or just watch? To just get a feel for it. And smartly, I think we both said, well, let us watch tonight, because we had just flown in and all those hours, and anyway, I think by the second match, I'm back there in tears thinking I've got to do this tomorrow night.
Oh, wow.
It was, I was terrified. I think we both were. It's so different over there, and it's nonstop, and it's nonstop. I want to say, but it's very physical, very, very physical, and you've got to be in decent shape to just even be able to keep up.
Mm-hmm.
And the Japanese girls were doing moves that we had never seen. Like that power bomb was new at the time.
Yeah.
So that second night I wanted to go home, and I was going to be there. I think our tour was for 2 months. So by the end of that 2 months, that was a real good education.
So it's like nowhere else. I mean, Japan wrestling is just on another scale.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. I mean, that's where things got real. Things got really real.
How did the crowds react to your matches?
Well, it's very different. They're very quiet at first, and so you really don't know. You don't know who they're behind or who they think the heel is, who the babyface is. So you really, you really stay a little bit confused, and just kind of do your thing, and hopefully they like it.
Yeah, right.
But the first night we were there, they have the girls that are in training are usually like 14, 15, 16-year-olds. And they do everything. They set up the ring. They carry your bags. They're gophers. They do everything it takes to put the show together.
Wow, yeah.
And that's part of their training. And they also are usually on the first or second match or both. They usually will start the show, and that gives them their experience. Yeah. And the very first night we were there, and they're called new faces, okay? And so the very first night we were there, one of the new faces broke her jaw.
Oh.
And I kid you not, I mean, Chris, she came out of the ring. They laid her down for just a second, and I don't know if it was just to reset the jaw or what it was, but she was up and she was tearing down the ring that night. She was carrying bags. She was doing all the same stuff, and I mean, matter of fact, they should have wired my jaw shut because, I mean, I couldn't get my jaw off the ground just watching what this girl went through.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And that's stuff, that the crowd doesn't see. But now, so I'm seeing this and going, oh, man, I think we're in trouble. We are in trouble. It was scary, but it worked out. And in fact, I was asked to go back and do a second tour, which I did, which was about 3 months. And so I did 2 different tours over there.
So you were over there for a while. How's the Japanese culture over there? I mean, were you able to, get into some things?
Yeah, it's incredible. It's so wild because I didn't speak Japanese, still don't. There was and very few people over there spoke English, so you were like a baby, just kind of trying to it's a lot of sign language.
Oh yeah.
And it was a very clean place, and which I was impressed with because I was coming from a place like New Orleans,
yeah.
and where, I mean, just anything goes and does, and but at night Tokyo is a little bit like that. There's the karaoke places are unreal, just full of little Japanese men singing, New York, New York. And it's just hysterical.
Yeah.
It was fun.
So then, you mentioned earlier you kind of walked away from wrestling. You feel like you did that at the right time? I know you were saying it was kind of because, just people not being respectful enough in the ring, your opponents, and not working with, kind of people that were maybe like you were earlier in your career. So, you said, I guess enough is enough at this point and I'm done. Do you feel you stepped away at the right time?
Oh yeah. I know I did, and I probably could have gone even a little earlier. I think the thing was I think I knew even before I went into wrestling that I wasn't going to be a lifer. Yeah. I knew that was not the only thing I was going to do. I didn't know what else I was going to do, but I just knew that I wasn't going to be 40 or 50 and still trying to wrestle. I just knew it.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like I went as far as I could go. So now it seems like a pretty good time to, just get out.
Yeah.
That's what I did. Yeah.
I hear you. Right. I had Malaya Hosaka on my show a few years back, and she was still doing matches. I don't know if she still is, but a couple years ago when I had her on, she still worked occasionally, which was pretty wild. Yeah.
I couldn't imagine. I probably would. I would blow up just walking to the ring, I'm sure. Yeah, there's no way.
Did you watch wrestling at all after occasionally, see what the women's divisions were up to?
Yeah, I mean, I would flip through and check it out. And, some things I was kind of disappointed in, but, I guess everything makes its way around. And, if that's what the promotion wants to do, that's what they do.
Yeah,
and,
right.
There's not a lot there's not a lot of input, I guess, at this point, by the talent. I think it's mainly run and kind of all formed by those in charge. But yeah, I did. I watched a little bit, and I think by that point, I think I was glad I was out.
Right. Did you see anybody that was like, that you saw maybe had some, good wrestling ability in spite of, being in the Divas era?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you mentioned Riley Ivory,
Mm-hmm.
Mickie James.
Yeah.
There were, there were several that, and Natalia.
Right.
Oh, who else?
Molly Holly. Did you ever watch her?
Molly Holly, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, there were girls that could certainly work,
Mm-hmm.
but it was obvious that what some of the point they were trying to get across.
Yeah.
And not necessarily them, the girls.
Right.
You knew that there was a lot of TNA going on. Yeah, I'd have never made that's for sure. I mean, if that's what it took, I'd have been out for sure. But I'm glad to see it now. Now it's taken another turn, and it's more focused on the athletic side of it.
Yeah.
I think Charlotte's doing a fabulous job. You have Bailey, who I think is just really talented,
Mm-hmm.
a great worker, and yeah, quite a few.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you did you ever see a situation where maybe you would go back to WWE, not to wrestle, but for any they oftentimes bring back some alum to just make appearances and things.
That's it. I'm waiting for him to call me back to come sing. That ain't gonna happen. No, I don't know. It really, what's kind of strange, I guess, or what feels a little strange, is that it seems as though after they shut down or stopped calling it WWF and went to WWE, it seems that era, back before the 90s, has been kind of kept tamped down or a little less remembered. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That it seems like everything they do and everything they pull from is from the 90s on. And maybe that's just me. I don't know. Maybe and it's not bitterness talking or anything like that.
It's just, right. They seem to do that more, yeah.
I'm very, very happy and thankful for the time I had, but I don't know. I don't know why or how they choose to do some of the things they do, and
right. I mean, the WWE Hall of Fame, they look at, the people's careers and put them in for what they've done. Now, I in my book, I think you should be in there. I don't know, how many, other people are in there that really maybe shouldn't be, or I'm not really going to, talk about that. But I certainly think that, you are worthy of being in the Hall of Fame. Oh,
well, I appreciate that. And if you were in charge of the Hall of Fame, then you could call me and I would come out and we'd make it happen. But, there's a great point, even, and not so much with me, but look at Judy Martin, Leilani Kai, that those two girls, it's beyond me how they have not yet been inducted.
Yeah. Right.
That they certainly, they should have been in a long time ago.
And I think it goes to your point that you were saying a minute ago about like where they're pulling from mostly is like the later 90s and 2000s and stuff. That seems to be like those people getting more attention, even though, their skills are certainly not up to par with the women like yourself and the ones you're mentioning. So I think you're right. I mean, I think they're looking more at that than, the older days for some reason.
Yeah. I can't, I don't know what the answer is or the reasoning is. They certainly deserve it.
Yeah.
Very much.
And
they brought a lot of girls in. They broke a lot of girls in. They a lot of of the girls would not have gone on to anything without the help of Judy and Leilani.
Absolutely, yeah. So as we wind down here, I just got a couple more things I want to ask you about here. This is Rockin' Robin you're listening to here on the RockStop. So just kind of speaking about what you guys were up against at that time, like when you were champion, about like not getting as much TV time or exposure or anything like that. The women's title that you were holding at the time was actually deactivated while you were still champion. I mean, that just goes to show how little of a women's pool, I guess, there was of the division.
I don't know. I don't even know how to add to that. That's just what you just said is just kind of fact.
Yeah.
That's really it. In fact, I still have the belt. It's common knowledge, really, that when I go and do autograph shows every now and then, I'll bring the belt, and it's really something cool for people to see.
Yeah, that's cool.
But I've had the belt for 30 years, yeah.
That's awesome. It's a classic piece of history. And
I'm waiting for the call. I think the call is probably going to be coming. That with the new show about the treasures of.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's well, we know where that one is. It's not so much lost treasure.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, is there anything else you would like to add to any of this?
No, I guess I hope I've covered everything that you wanted to, Chris, and I've enjoyed talking to you, and I am going to be on a couple of shows coming. I usually only do maybe one or two per year, and where I'll go in and take part in an autograph show and see some old friends and that sort of thing. I think one is coming up in Pennsylvania that later this month, and like we said before, maybe you can talk about that if I can get that information to you.
Yeah. And I know they just aired The Dark Side of the Ring on Vice, which is a pretty heavy watch. I mean, it talks about some heavy topics there that you had in your life early on. And how do you feel that documentary came out?
Well, first of all, I think the Dark Side crew, that whole team, I think just did an incredible job with the content. Because, like you said, it was a deep and very sensitive matter, and very personal matter. And one of the reasons actually that I agreed to do it was because I had seen. I had heard that they wanted to do an episode on our father, Grizzly Smith, and I didn't. I kind of put it off. Didn't really kind of come forth and say, "Yeah, I want to do that." And but once I saw a couple of other episodes of what they have created in this series. Then I think that's what helped me decide to go ahead and do it, because they were so very respectful to every single story. So every episode that you watch, they're extremely respectful, and they're not out to. It's not out to be a hit piece,
right?
And it's not out to embarrass people. It's just kind of just giving a look into. Well, that's why they call it the dark side of the ring. Look into, another aspect of these people's lives. And, unfortunately, ours, had some pretty tough stuff, but, everybody has tough stuff they go through. So, but no, they handled it well. And, I'm very proud of that, really.
Yeah. The feedback has been, pretty positive about it.
Yeah.
And,
it was a great experience from beginning to end. Even the whole time I could reach out, I could ask questions as they were editing and all. And they were just fabulous to work with.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I really do appreciate you coming on the show, Robin. This was a lot of fun talking with you. And just send me the links of the places you'll be appearing, the conventions or whatever, and I will add them in. So if you guys are in the area, you can go and and see Rockin' Robin at some of these conventions.
Yeah, or Rotten Robin. Maybe I can do that now, right? I don't have to be in tights to do that.
I guess that's true.
There you go.
Yeah. So this has been great talking with you, Robin. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I've enjoyed it.
All right, awesome.
It.
So have a great rest of your day.
All right, you do the same.
All right, take care.
Okay. All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.